Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back. Nate here for Sonic Academy, and today we're talking about compressors and why sometimes you probably don't want to be using them. Now, I don't want to preach rights or wrongs. I think there are use cases for everything, and you should try everything, but I want to just kind of give you some pointers to using compressors in specific situations where I think people, are maybe a little bit misguided in their use. Particularly, I'm going to use drums here as an example, and also just bear in mind, I'm coming at this from, I think most of you watching Sonic Academy stuff, coming at this from the perspective of electronic music producers as well, because there's a difference. Quite often you're going to see marketing and stuff for compressors, and that was the latest vintage thing that's been recreated or whatever, and how amazing it is on drums or whatever. Quite often this is coming from the perspective from producers that are working with live recorded drums, in which case a compressor like that makes complete sense. Compressors are dynamics control units that are designed to bring the most extreme loud parts of a signal closer to the most extreme quiet parts of a signal. That's essentially what they do. And it's, at the end of the day, it's a volume fader that is automated to create lower peaks and higher sustained areas, according to ratios and stuff. Now, we're not going to get into the inner workings of compressors, but that's essentially the idea. So when I say it makes sense with live recorded drums, if you are compressing a kick drum, every single kick that's being played by a live drummer is going to be slightly different. So you want an automated process that is going to be able to adapt to various different volumes of a kick coming through and, attempt to, by this automated process, bring them all to a similar sound. As electronic music producers, we want to keep things stable. We want things to quite often have a little bit less dynamics, and we're also often working with content which just repeats itself by its very nature. Synthesized drum components are going to be very much the same every single time. So why are you worried about a compressor that can, rectify differences in samples when there are none? There are other ways that you can look at controlling dynamics depending on what you're wanting to do that may be a lot more effective, and you don't even need to buy plugins for these a lot of the time. There are tools that are right in your DAW. I'm going to show you the most simple version of that right now. Let's dive in and just take a look. So firstly, like I said, when you're approaching something like single drum sounds, now compressors, I think, on a drum bus makes sense. You can see I have this is an old project that I've just found and resurrecting and cleaning up and correcting all my mistakes that I will also do from time to time like this. I've got some compression on the drum bus. Now this kind of makes sense because now you have a whole bunch of different elements and you're trying to run them through a bus to kind of make them cohesive. So you're using the compressor here to kind of bring loud and soft parts of all these different components together so that they're in one space. So in that case, that kind of makes sense. But what I'm talking about here is quite often you'll see somebody, they'll add a compressor to something because they want to get more punch out of it. Now, I'd argue that there are way more effective ways to get punch out of a sound, and let's just take a look at this now. So let's say, for example, I want to dive straight in here with the kick, for example. And this kick, I think, was originally just a synthesized kick. So it's this V9 kick in Bitwig. And it's been bounced to audio. I tend to bounce everything to audio as soon as I can, because then you can do things like this. And we'll come into the audio section here, and let's actually just make this bigger for you so you can see. I've shortened the kick as well. This is something that really helps me with mixes as well, to kind of loosen that or get rid of some of that bass energy. It's still got a lot of bass in there, but it's not interfering with other parts of the track. But let's say I need this kick to be a little bit more punchy. So rather than doing a compressor, what a compressor is going to do is it's going to pull down the volume and try to make this come up and make that go down. When you have an attack signal dialed in or attack amount dialed in, it's slower to bring that volume down, and you're left with a peak, which is why compressors can give you punch. A much more effective way to do that is to, and also just this you can control visually, so you can see, you don't need to limit anything here because you can see when it's going to get too high, the peaks. We just do that, and we can come in and use our gain control to reduce. If we wanted to make this more punchy, we could add a little bit of punch in there, maybe bring up some of the bass later on in the kick to make it a little bit more subby in that sustained area of the kick. And let's take a listen to that now. So we'll compare the two together. You can hear you're getting a lot more of that sort of click in the beginning of that one now. Right, so what we can now also do is just bring up the overall volume of the whole kick channel rather than clipping that audio signal. We can just come in here, bring this up. There you can hear the difference now between the two. Maybe we want to bring out even more of those subs here. That one's punching quite a bit now. It's got a lot of sort of weight underneath, and it's still quite a short kick as well. So let's just loop those together so we can get only those. Okay, and let's bring in the old kick here so you can just get a combination of the two. And yeah, it's going to change. See, that one sounds a little bit anemic now by comparison to this one. It's got a little bit more body to it, and we've also accentuated that click in the beginning a little bit by bringing down that frequency there to dip it under. So you kind of got a little bit more separation from that click and the rest of the kick now. Extremely visual this, and you can kind of see exactly what's going on without any of the guesswork here. So it's as simple as that. I mean, we can come down and also take a look at some stuff like the claps, for example. So another way that you can be extremely clinical here is, let's say, for instance, that clap, obviously it's going to be falling on the kick in places. And the beauty of Bitwig is we can just loop that. So we may, for example, have a problem with that transient. It doesn't look too bad here in this case, but let's say, for instance, that transient was too much and it's falling on the click of the kick, and we want to do something about that. We can be so clinical in this regard and come in here and actually just take out a few milliseconds of that attack there. You can barely hear that now, but you've essentially now created yourself more headroom for the click on the kick drum. Let's play those two together now. You're not really losing anything from the clap. Accentuate that a little bit more as well. So that's actually going to fit together really nicely. And again, you can do the same thing here. Go in and just sort of tweak maybe you want to bring up the sort of body of the clap, but you also don't want to get too much of that rattle at the end there. It's so easy to kind of just visually see where that is and then tweak it. There we go. Maybe shorten this even more. And this is pretty much, it's surgical. It's going to be exactly the same every single time. You're not relying on a plugin to react to it ahead of time. It's in the WAV file itself. Let's play all of those together now. Cool, there you go. So another reason that you might use a compressor like this is to kind of tame the peaks from distorting or going too loud. Now that's a valid way to use them as well. Typically you want to use them with a really fast attack in that case. Again, with drums, I would actually prefer to use other tools a lot of the time for that. Let's say, for instance, let's come down to these toms here. If these were... Let's say I wanted to just kind of make sure that those peaks were not getting too loud. In most cases with percussive sounds, I would actually just clip them off, which is a form of compression in itself, but it is just, again, more clinical, and it's not relying on any guesswork. You're finding a spot, and just cutting it off. And it's doing what a compressor does. It's essentially taking the really loud stuff, distorting it or cutting it, and then you can bring up the softer stuff, which is what a compressor does as well. But again, it's just in a more surgical way that you can do that sort of thing. So let's just look at a few more examples, and they're all very much the same concept of working with, gain automation like this. A more modern way for me to tackle this sort of dealing with dynamics with, again, particularly drum sounds, would look at transient designers. So something like this Transient Shaper, or even the built-in Bitwig ones. Now this one, again, it's kind of acting automatically and more like a compressor, but the controls also make a lot more sense in terms of adding attack and adding body or sustain or whatever. If you want it to be more punchy, add some attack. Obviously that's pretty extreme, but you probably want to clip the output of this as well, which is also fine. But inversely, we can also, maybe reduce the sustain. Now you're going to get that really sort of staccato punchiness. Take a listen to that on and off. It's off. On. There you go. Now this one obviously working on the drum bus as well, so it's doing multiple different things. Another one that I actually really like at the moment is the mixed drums from Arturia. Now this is a combination of sort of tone shaping, but it also has these little shaper sections here. Which are essentially just volume envelopes being added to the signal there as well. Now lastly, the other place you want to think about this kind of thing is coming to the actual sound design stage itself. And I mean, for the great example, don't look any further than Kick 3 from Sonic Academy. Once again, there is no reason to compress something that comes out of this plugin. Do the work in the plugin itself. It's so much easier to do and so much more control that you have over it when you have sort of advanced node editing like this. I'll just come and let's grab some preset of mine here. Now, this you can extend this even further than just, currently this would be the volume envelope here. You can see this is the volume envelope for the sub specifically, so there's almost nothing in the beginning here. Most of the attack is coming from our actual attack sample here. So if you want more of that, just come in here and dial up the volume for this one. There you go, more punch, no compression. When it comes to the actual sub elements as well, you can go further than just creating punch here. When you think about the pitch, so for example, you can see the pitch is coming down like this. And let's say, for instance, there's a frequency that you don't like. This one here is around about 200 hertz or whatever. Let's say, for instance, you want to go and EQ that out. You can actually almost avoid EQing as well by reducing the volume of that phase of the kick drum there as well. Now this actually seems to be the 200 hertz here. And let's get a bit more of that sort of boomy bass in this section here. So you can see the shape of the kick now, how that's coming together. You could get this with compression, but it's just so much guesswork when you're just doing it with, and also just not precise. I think this is just, if you're aiming for this sort of control, then using volume envelopes for something like this is going to be the way to go. Now, compressors do have a sound. Some of them, they can be great in places, and they can work for stuff like this. But I just think rather come at this from a place of understanding and ask yourself what you're trying to achieve before you just go and stick a compressor on something. Are you wanting more attack on the kick? Then do this. If you're wanting the sound of a compressor on the kick, then that's a different story. If you're wanting the saturation that comes from a specific compressor, that's a different story altogether. If you've got a bunch of live stuff in a drum bus, that sound, kind of dynamics all over the place, that's a different story as well. Compressor's great for bringing things together in a more subtle way. Yeah, last little idea here, just because kick gives you this opportunity to kind of, deal with the click sample and the sub section independently like that. Let's just take a look at something that you could maybe do with maybe the claps again. Using volume envelopes and stuff like that again, you can do things in multiband like that too. We'll just use the Bitwig one and maybe just say multiband effects. And again, just to maybe add a bit of punch, but ask yourself where you want to add it. Is it something you want to add just a little bit of that sizzle on the top that you want punching a little bit further? You can come in here and just bring in the transient control. And now we're just adding a little bit. We're just adding that little bit of click to the top rather than just chucking a whole bunch of attack into the midsection as well. And that actually kind of bring out a little bit of stereo information as well. And those are sounding pretty nice and crispy now. No compression again, just a little bit of attack on the high frequencies there using a volume shaper. Cool, so there you go, some food for thought when it comes to tackling dynamics in your tracks. So one other area that this sort of concept works well is bass lines especially bouncing bass lines to audio. You can really kind of get in there and get that sort of machine gun tightness with them. But also if you're doing stuff that's a little bit looser and you want to kind of keep things in the sort of analog model domain with a synth or whatever, just doing something as simple as reducing the sustain and keeping a short decay on the ADSR will give you that little bit of snap that you need, and you don't have to then go and compress something to try and get that to punch more. Quite often compressing that kind of material is just going to flatten everything out and make it lifeless anyways. Cool. So yeah, go try that out. Like I said, every single DAW has got tools that will let you adjust the gain in an audio file like that. And you can use this to great effect to really kind of mold and get detailed into the amount of control that you have over samples and signals like this. Cool. Hope you guys enjoyed that, and I will catch you soon here at Sonic Academy. Until then, take care. See you then.